everyone. This is Sethikus, Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts, and Occult Science for the latest installment here on our platform. This is to be expected one of the most controversial segments that I've ever created. It is going to be getting into much of what has been revealed, and I'm going to be taking everybody back to ancient Kemet, which in turn is everything to do with Egypt. And in context to this segment, it is to note that Thoth has throughout the ages assumed multiple roles throughout the Kemetan Egyptian mythos. And it is here to state at the beginning of this segment that some of the most deeply occulted knowledge concerning Thoth is going to be presented in this segment and is not very well known with those that are privy to the occult. This includes most secular scholars, let alone with most occult scholars and researchers that are akin to any knowing for the most part when it comes to these things. I'm going to take things even deeper into the truth of everything. And with those who are modern day practitioners of magic and the metaphysical arts and sciences, I'm going to be putting a crushing silence on the disinformation and simple commentary individuals have presented that think they know the difference when it comes to Thoth and have yet to come into the deeper truth of Thoth when it comes to all of this. It is to note here first that Thoth did serve as a certain power, and by the end of this segment, you will see that Thoth still does serve as a certain power, despite what is going to be exposed, especially when it comes to the forces of the ultimate good and the ultimate evil, because all of it goes much deeper than a manipulated polarity paradigm in context of the darkness of ignorance and the false cold light, reaching much further beyond what most people have said or have been led to believe throughout the ages in context of Thoth. And it's to further state that what I've been able to observe in context of memories I have tapped into to the ancient Kemetan high priest genetics I hold, akin to my personal soul code lineage, in order to heal this. It is to say that I've known the things I'm going to be sharing in this segment longer than the time it took to find any reference for it going into my personal studies with everything. It is to note again my direct experience when it comes to the brotherhoods, which is why I am doing this, so that we as shamans, so that we as magicians can get back to the real magic that our ancestors were cut off from, given over to all of the counterfeit systems that key you into nothing more than the lower astral good works of consciousness. And all of this is going to be coming from a deep conviction within my eternal spirit, the soul code, blood code, genetic essence, which is no longer allowing me to remain silent to these things because of where things are now, back up on the wheel of the great year, coming out of the fifth cycle, which again has been the Atlantean cycle that humanity has been caught in for the last 26,000 fucking years. I've been very patient to the development of what has been happening in network, and to what I have observed, most of everything that is still being made public is still hitting the etheric ceiling. And with all of the spokes that keep getting thrown into the wheel, as they have been, to keep things within an inverted axis of consciousness, hopefully this dissertation is going to bring that shit to a grinding halt, so that we as individuals can get back onto the vertical in trajectory and step off the wheel of madness before what we think to know about anything has its course to all of the encrypted reversals. The fact is that most that think they know what is true concerning these things have not accessed some of the most important factors in context to know the real occult knowledge that needs to be known, let alone how important all of this is in context to Thoth and our true occult history. In this segment, I'm going to be revealing a lot of these things for everyone to consider at the expense of a heart-wrenching and gut-ripping process that I've had to go through putting all of this together. And it is to mention the levels of spiritual warfare that I've been facing the past 5 to 6 months. But this is going to be our charge by the higher force itself to end the 6 cycles that a lot of things have been on and make steps towards walking through the gates of awareness that I'm going to be opening for those that can. And if you can't right away, that's all right. You're going to be able to come back to these things when you're ready. And with everything that has led up to this moment, with what is unfolding on my end, it is to break through certain set barriers within the codex of what has been encrypted within the etheric realm in context to all of this. I've spent a long time in cross-reference, going over things again and again in order to make this presentation. And I'm going to make it as simple as I can to the extreme detail of everything that all of this really entails, let alone the effect that it's had on literally everything, and is going to set the record straight with things on my end when it comes to all of this. This is going to be part of the Magi Grail Shaman archives that I presented on Black Earth Productions as one of the most important segments to this, knowing what I know. And again, this is going to be controversial and will trigger certain individuals very hard to certain levels of awakening, let alone to any cognitive dissonance that is going to kick out with others. And honestly, this is what I expect, so that certain things can be burned away in the ashes of the blackening phase we have been going through as a collective, but even deeper with individuals that have been doing the real work and who also have a predisposition to know the occult in general. Now, as most of you know to what I do, I'm going to take things to what the Dark Ones have encrypted here in context to Thoth, and bring things into a major deconstruction process and expose that which was basically an attempt to ensure that when things came to this point again within the current time cycle and stellar activation, now is around the time which was known by the ancients for those that would come to know more of the true occult history of Earth after the long dark night. They knew that it would eventually be revealed and remembered and start to be taught in all the ways that it needed to be. And within the distortions that were set in place over the aeons by the Dark Ones, it was to potentially ensure that neither those that think that they are the good, let alone those that are evil, would ever have a decisive victory over the other in context to the manipulated polarity paradigm, to the darkness of ignorance and the false cold light, concealing the real, and to make certain that the great deception would continue to go on and on and on in the same feedback loop to the grid works of consciousness on the dark wheel of the Ouroboros. Because again, without specific proper knowledge and wisdom, these walls within the etheric and physical realms can never be torn down, no matter what anyone has come to know about anything. It is very specific what I'm getting at here, and is a major key we need in order to unlock the gates if we are going to continue to evolve out of the dark night and blinding light that has enslaved mankind. And that is the point with things that I'm working to present and decrypt for everyone here on Black Earth Productions. And where I'm going to take things now in this segment is going to force you to stretch beyond current narratives that have limited our progression. And in the coming days and years, this is going to be a major turning point for those who are willing to catch everything I'm going to be getting into. Hopefully, you will be able to cultivate the fact that we are going to be closer to an actual fucking victory here in alignment to the ultimate good in context if we continue forward beyond the veils of where things are still at present and continue to deconstruct the lie and destroy the set barriers and set fire to these pits that would consume us, not knowing the difference, so that they can become beacons of warning for others to whom we are proceeding. It's going to be necessary to make the constant choice to be in alignment with truth, no matter what truth itself reveals. and allow what needs to be set in flame to be set in flame. And if you motherfuckers actually hear what I'm going to be unpacking in this segment and look into these matters for yourselves so that they become self-evident, it is going to be a major victory for all of us and for you as the individual. And so to this, as I operate with my personal path work, I expect our initiates of our mystery school to study the shit out of this at pace. Because as I go much deeper into some of the extremely hardcore occult material within this segment, it is going to continue to lead up where I'm going to be taking things with more that is going to be unpacked in the future. I know that it is still going to take a long time for everything to work its way out in context. And to what I'm going to present, it has only been spoken of with literally a handful of individuals. And I honestly still do not think that most of you are going to be ready to hear this. But as I was prompted and released to do this, it needs to be addressed on our platform here at Black Earth Productions and unpacked and known for those that are ready. And as levels of consciousness have been rising in our reality field more than they ever have been the last 26,000 years within the last 20 ancient records, which have been accessed by those that have the gift and have been allowed to pass through certain gates of awareness while going through the process of integrating the teaching and works of those who have preceded us to continue to expand upon a proper foundation. We are now due for a major occult reformation. And one thing that is very important when it comes to every authentic sage and mystic and magician and wizard and poet and philosopher and occult scholar and researcher and esoteric psychologist, it's to note that the true shaman lines are awakening as they have been. And this is going to be an ode to the ancestors and will be a cry from them to that which is within my blood and my bones. It is, as I've stated, that the real occult knowledge that we need to be tapping into is that which is within the eternal spirit to blood code and soul code genetic codex, given over to specific techniques for activation to take place that will take the individual to places beyond what I could ever reveal in one segment. And for those who come to know the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms and live them, taking it deeper when it comes to the knowing of how to wield magic correctly into all of the different forms and tomes and offices which can be accessed within the codex. It is this codex to what it potentially reveals to the individual with what you are meant for. We are the ones to determine which direction the rudder of reality is going to turn. No matter how big or small it seems, everything we do matters. And more pieces to the equation of our true occult history are going to be recovered in this segment as a massive upgrade of awareness in consciousness. This is going to be a major wall that is torn down to make clear the path behind us, taking things forward and to find those gates from within beyond the trajectory of where things are still at present. It is to question, again, where the fuck is all of this going, everyone? See here, no one single individual has all of the answers to the questions that you, the listener, may have. And it is to say that the real answers to the questions that you seek are already there within you. It's just a matter of knowing how to extract these things and thus access what is there. And it's what I teach in context to the initiation with our mystery school. And as I've said over and over on Black Earth Productions, there is no arrival point when it comes to this path work. But without the proper foundation of initiation into the occult, no one will be able to come to any sort of viable conclusion once you hit the fucking ceiling. You will be cemented, and I still continue to see it happen. And to these ancient records that were lost throughout time, they have been unearthed again in context of what I'm going to be sharing with you. Be aware and take great heed, as I am now going to begin to weave pieces to this specific equation into something more comprehensive when it comes to our ancient past, our present moments, and the trajectory of future timelines that will be unfolding. First, I'm going to be getting into the role of Thoth as an archetype, which in context to the Thothian sect, along with their many suborders and secret societies, are controlled by a committee of dark sorcerers who proliferate their agendas to enslave humanity on all levels of society. In short, the Thothian sect had been in full alliance with the Brotherhood of the Snake since what happened did, along with the cult of Baal Lilith. And so goes the dark working of the three specific factions that most are pitifully unaware of, working in unison on all levels that you still cannot imagine. It is to state that all of this has its roots to the dark Luciferian rebellion in light of the Inyani massacre, which is touched upon with the Keylontic sciences. This was the main event in our ancient past, going into prehistory, that began the avalanche of betrayal among the brotherhoods and sisterhoods in the face of the Magi Grail shaman and the ancient wisdom councils themselves. Here in this segment, I'm going to expose the Thothian sect specifically in much more detail as I work to unpack what I've been able to trace within myself and confirm to my works. Get ready, strap yourselves the fuck in. This is going to be a lot that I'm going to be getting into. In 25,500 BC, this is when the dark Luciferian rebellion began. It is important to note that the effect that all of this has had is still the effect to why things are the way they are at present. And so to this, the aim at first was to offset the 23,500 BC stellar activation from taking place. And it's also happening with the current stellar activation, which started in the year 2000. Taking things back though, in 22,340 BC, it was during this time that Thoth was the one who was decided to orchestrate the Great Deception with the Anu Draconian factions. And because he was so trusted before this happened, he previously had been allowed into the colonies of the Inyani Magi Grail shaman, who had direct access to specific stargates running from the ancient Syrian Alfarian gridworks of consciousness straight into the earth here in Midgard. At this time, the Inyani Magi Grail shaman were finally in position to override the dark diotic crystal pillar gridworks that had been encrypted on the distortion in context to the destruction of Maldek within the consciousness gridworks of the planetary Templar complex, which happened over 560 million years ago. Which again goes back to the crack within the planetary Templar, sealing out the Grail of consciousness and the original template onto the infinite feedback loop and time cycles of the Ouroboros. And to this, the Magi Grail shaman, along with the wisdom councils, have been working thousands of years to reach this point of breaching the rift. So to the true purpose of incarnation here on earth was to become a partaker of the biospiritual regenesis. It is again to note that past, present, and future are all happening now in our present moments in context. And if you haven't caught what I've said in context to that, you're going to want to go back to go and listen to what has been previously presented here on Black Earth Productions. And it's still to the fact right now that a lot of people in network didn't catch what the fuck I said back in 2016. And you are still in the wheel of the Black Knight ignorance to what has been actually unfolding here. All of this in turn also goes back to why the creation of Stonehenge took place with my ancient ancestors, along with many other megaliths here on Earth, including the pyramids that were originally built to offset the gridworks of the diotic dark crystal pillar encrypted on the solar spiral and the galactic spiral creation before the pole shift of consciousness took place, both literally with the Earth itself and within the consciousness units of mankind. Thoth was originally supposed to assist to bring things back into alignment, but during this time, he was finally allowed to access what is known in the Keylontic sciences as CDT Plate Disc 11, which originally belonged to the Magi Grail shaman among the ancient wisdom councils. The CDT plates, they total in 12. And for those that don't know, the CDT plates store all of the proper knowledge and wisdom that has to do with every single blood code to soul code, race, line, lineage, to everything here in our reality field and universe and beyond. They hold all of our true occult history, and Thoth was supposed to translate CDT Plate Disc 11 verbally to his people. It was not to be written down, because there was too much corruption that could happen if things were written down here in context. With this, he was supposed to teach the truth to the original arts and sciences that were revealed specifically in CDT Plate Disc 11, and to other things with the CDT plates that need to be known. These are frequency holders and transmitters of knowledge. They transmit frequency that activates the signet shields. And again, as I've stated in other Magi Grail Shaman segments, that the word signet means Stargate. And there are 12 signet shields in context to the planetary Templar, which were all created at the same time, billions of years ago, in the original universe, when everything was in alignment with the true universal tree of life. The signet or Stargate shields encircle the CDT plates as protection, and were given to all of the 12 original race line Magi Grail Shaman of each original race, who were the original remote activators for their stargates of consciousness and the overseers of their tribes, taken over by false gatekeepers. It is not the same as it is today, with corrupt rulers and power to government and sadistic corporate entities that have enslaved humanity, that rape children, that feed off the blood of the fucking innocent. That is the result of what is manifested due to what has happened. And it was the original overseers that acted as way showers for those who incarnated. And fact is to this, that you cannot activate the shields unless you have the CDT plate codex accessed within the blood codes and soul codes themselves. That is why blood code to soul code lineage is so fucking important to know, and can only be activated by certain individuals to unveil. And so for a time, again, Thoth was entrusted with CDT Plate 11 in order to transmit this within his codex of the knowledge therein, and to assist the Anunnaki races in context to the biospiritual regenesis, to what was set forth. And with everything that happened, he made the decision to side with the Dark Ones, in context to the Thoth, Enki, Zephyrim alliance that happened when decisions were made to side with the Brotherhood of the Snake, which again goes back to the Atlantean motherfucking warlocks, and is when the Thothian sect here in context with the Dark Atlantean warlocks started to rise up against the wisdom councils. And to the office of the Thothian sect, it was headed by Thoth, the Atlantean, who were, on a side note, later the Anu Draconian factions that created the Zeta Greys as hive mind drones, which have been used to observe and monitor humanity on an interdimensional level. And see, I know this shit is real because I had direct physical encounter with the Zeta Grey in 1994. My friend at the time, who was also witness to this, was there with me when it happened. So I don't give a shit what anybody else out there thinks. I know that all of this is real. And the things that need to be addressed here with Thoth in context to the Marduk bloodlines, they were still in full alliance with the Omicron Draconians. And the fact is that Thoth sided with the idea of a united Anu Draconian nation to become the gods, which is why he did what he did. And Thoth betrayed the Magi Grail shaman, who he was allowed by them to what he had been entrusted with. And when he came into the region of the Inyani, Magi Grail Shaman in Lemuria, this is where the activator site for Stargate 12 was on Pangaea. And when Thoth came into this region, which was the region of Mu, he had previously handpicked a few of the Anu Melchizedek priests to work with him directly on a ruse, and further work to initiate many in that region into a 10-year process that was supposed to work things up to a point to where they could finally break hold of the Diodic Dark Crystal Pillar. But right before it was about to happen, they sabotaged the entire mission. And with no one seeing it coming, the brutal fury and murdering rage of Thoth was unleashed against the Inyani into our reality field. He gave them a choice, which was to the women specifically. They were told that they did not side with the Thothian sect, that their divine masculine counterparts would be tortured and murdered. It was also the fact that the Thothians needed women for breeding in order to get the blood code and soul code genetic codex of the Inyani. And everything here in context to who the Inyani are goes into the concept of authentic twin flames, who, as I have stated, have been at war with the Dark Ones for a very, very long time, and were the original gatekeepers here in context, and with potential access to signet shields that they were the protectors of. At first, the Inyani men were sent away and outcast, and as the women were told that the men would not be harmed, some of the women went willingly, betraying their divine counterparts. After this happened, Thoth then sent out a raiding party and tracked down almost all of the Inyani men, with those that went out from the Thothian sect on a blood-bathed slaughter. And it's to note that this is one of the greatest massacres of all fucking time, which has been forgotten over the aeons in context to our true occult history. And it's pretty much the main cause point to everything that has unfolded in our histories leading up to the present moment, into the major factors in context to the core wound of humanity. Also in context to what happened to Maldek. All of this is still encrypted within the ancient trauma and overlay within the etheric body on an unconscious, subconscious level, within the mind field of every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth, whether any of you realize this or not. And to the Inyani men that survived the onslaught, most were then raked into the dark Atlantean temples as prisoners and used as fodder for ritual sacrifice to the dark gods to feast upon for their codex. Others were used as literal living electrical posts that they could run frequency through to access the gridworks and codex within them, until it basically fried them the fuck out, reaching the point of death, and were drained out accordingly. And with others, some of the men got away and escaped the massacre, who then faded into time without a known trace. But they vowed to later reemerge when the time was right, to incarnate again and take total vengeance in force for what the Thothians did, coming into alliance with the Brotherhood of the Snake and the cult of Baal Lilith. And so just take a moment and feel into what I'm saying here, because there is a lot more I'm about to unpack with this segment. We're going to go and take a break now. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I will be right back. Welcome back, everybody, from the break. This is Sethikus, Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science. And so far, what I've gotten into with this segment has barely scratched the surface still. Take it back into the things that I was explaining before, and continue here again to teach those that would hear to know the difference, and walk away from all of the lies, and let the Dark Priest class starve out and rot into evaporation to their compulsive consumption of life. And see, this is what the fuck I am doing, because I also have strong memory within my codex to all of this that happened with the Inyani ever since I actualized myself into existence. This is gonna be my motherfucking reckoning. So again, the Thothians seduced and tricked the Inyani women into thinking that they would let the men go if the women went with them. And it's to say, again, that some of the women sided with the Thothians, knowing the difference, and were also in turn working with the Thothians behind the scenes before everything was unleashed, with no mind or heart to their counterparts, seduced with the promise of power over all creation as the new gods in alliance with the Thothians. The women here in context, in turn, became the cult of Baal Lilith. And it was Thoth himself that sanctioned all of this in alliance with the Brotherhood of the Snake. And is all the prime example of how things that were once beautiful and good became corrupt and evil and psychopathic. And during the massacre, they jammed all of the signals to Sirius in context to the Alfarian gridworks of consciousness, which was also unleashed by the Alcyons, who made alliance with the Anu Draconian factions when all of this happened, to first cut off the Inyani and then work to destroy the other Magi Grail shaman lineages among the ancient wisdom councils. The Inyani women were told that the Thothians had already had control of the earth when all of this happened. And to the deception, they also told the women that they would destroy the earth in the same fashion that Maldek was destroyed. They threatened to take the inner earth regions as well and destroy all races of humanity to manipulate for fear. Quote, "If you care about the other life forms on earth, you will agree to be our breeders," end quote. And without the Alcyon councils to hold Stargate 5 in alignment, their only hope was to stay alive long enough to try and figure out what to do next. But alas, we're all treated like meat to be used for inverted pleasure and breeding and slavery. Now, one thing about the Inyani specifically that I want to touch upon here, that the concept of twin flames comes from who the Inyani were, genetically bonded together on a 12D multidimensional level. This in turn all goes back to the cosmic law of gender. They have strands 1 through 6 polarized and separate in context to their physical form on a multidimensional level, but strands 7 through 12 are bonded and united with them. They are one being on a spirit to soul code level on strands 7 through 12. Yet on a blood code level, it is on strands 1 through 6 in context to physicality, which again expresses itself here in Midgard to the law of gender as male and female divine counterparts. The Thothians forced the women and raped them and sexually assaulted them relentlessly. And if they conceived in context to the Nephilim, they would keep them tied up and restrained till the time of delivery of their dark offspring took place, and were later murdered if they could no longer produce offspring for the Dark Priest class. Again, to this though, some of the women were directly part of the betrayals and sided willingly with the Dark Luciferian Covenant agenda. The deception was so fucking great that it literally rippled all the way up throughout the time matrix and is still the major aspect of what we deal with as humans in our present hour. And because Thoth allowed to have CDT plate 11 in his possession and the activator disk for Shield 11, this is the knowledge that the Dark Ones have been using against us for aeons. It's this right fucking here. And the Thothians thus assumed full control of the activator site, Stargate 11. And it's the one they actually wanted because that's the one that could basically close everything down on a D11 level, and then run everything from a reverse and inverted D11 matrix gridworks of consciousness, which all goes back to the Ari tree construct in context to Kabbalah, in reflection to the Qliphoth. This is everything to do with Thoth inverted, which was never fucking meant to be there, in context to the void, and to make it easier for the dark Atlantean priest class to the Brotherhood of the Snake. Thoth wrote and encrypted the Emerald Tablets. Now, you out there have heard about the Emerald Tablets, right? So you got to understand that is where they came from, everyone. That is what they are. They were created to be given to the Dark Priest class for full access to knowledge of what was stolen and to what people have come to know about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They are inverted, paltered fragments of what is truly there within CDT plate disc 11. Thoth ended up translating volumes on Templar mechanics, which again means template, and revealed how it all works so that the Dark Priest class could use it to get control over the gridworks of the lower and the upper astral and manipulate the DNA structure to fuel line their gridworks within the etheric realm. This is what the Emerald Tablets of Thoth in their physical translations were for. And Thoth was not supposed to commit any of it to writing because of the fact that the Anu Draconian Melchizedeks were already at war with the Magi Grail Shaman to take things over since the time of the destruction of Maldek. And there have been many battles. Many. So many battles over the fucking aeons, I can't even put it all into words. But this is when these bastards got access to these things, okay? And they knew how to reverse and invert things in context to specific gridworks of consciousness, and also the ley line grids of the earth itself. This was the betrayal that took place among the brotherhoods that set course to everything that has unfolded for the last 26,000 years. However, the absolute worst thing that Thoth did was betray the ancient wisdom councils and the Magi Grail Shaman and all of mankind. And it's where all of the genetic codes became corrupt and distorted with all of the Anunnaki and Draconian overlays, along with many other things in context to stellar genetics. And to those women specifically, women were and still are the main targets. These are they who gave birth to the dark gods that needed gateways into this reality field. That's how the fuck it works. And it's to note that Thoth also took several of the women for himself and used them for the same purpose. This is when the seed of evil was copulated here in our reality field. Evil is a lineage, and in context to that, along with everyone else among the Dark Priest class. When the stellar activation came back around after aeons in the year 2000, also leading up to things in 2012, it's to note that we're about to cross a major threshold going into 2020. And it's to say in full conviction that many are still being raked the fuck out into their gridworks of consciousness via the New Age movement, which is all tied to the dark occult. With all of you that think that you've stumbled upon advanced knowledge, all of this in context to the New Age movement specifically was the true beginning of the externalization of the hierarchy, which was stated would happen by Helena Blavatsky on a massive decades-long ritual, rolling these teachings out to the masses, along with many other things for public consumption. And that's what the fuck has happened, everybody. You think you know, you still don't fucking know. All of you so-called light worker motherfuckers are running on their teaching, and you are part of their agendas. And to all of the Hermetic teaching that was first originally part of CDT plate disc 11. This is what those of us know the difference to and are taking it back in context to cosmic law. And a lot of other things in line with all of the other CDT plate discs and signet shields to what the fuck I've been working to do this whole time on Black Earth Productions. And we still got a lot of years to go. Years of unpacking and reintegrating to reinstate that which once was before all of this happened. And as I have stated for years now, I am taking things back to the fucking original. And for those that still don't know the game of the real occult history, if you don't know these things, then you've been part of the indoctrination, their indoctrination, and the dark occult false light agendas. And you're in alliance with the dark Luciferian covenant, so fucking realize it. You need to wake the fuck up and be initiated into the real to crush your indoctrination to slavery and reach into that which is beyond what the dark ones have encrypted. Listen, I'm saying all of this in great care because after a certain time and context to what is unfolding, there's going to be no turning back for you. And you will get leashed the fuck out on levels you still cannot imagine. I have already seen what the fuck is going to happen if people don't wake the fuck up. I'm not here to save the world. I'm here to speak to people that are going to hear. It's not up to me for you. It's up to you for you. This is about being the cause point, not being bound to the realm of effects. And so further, members of the ancient wisdom councils were originally in the position to protect and preserve the sacred wisdom records for the future benefit of the earth and mankind as a whole here in Midgard when it comes to the grid works of consciousness on both the solar and galactic spirals of creation. Thus, those assembled in the ancient High Syrian Alfarian Wisdom Council were among the primary lineage of the Magog Shaman as the Emerald Order. They were keepers of the blue flame grid works of consciousness upon the three spirals of creation and the true universal tree of life. They were the primary archivists of Earth's vast genetic library. They were scribes, teachers, wisdom keepers, mystics, magicians, wizards, and shamans who were responsible for assembling, cataloging, and managing valuable collections in context to magic in all of the metaphysical sciences. True historical information for mapping out the DNA codex that functions as the genetic library for creation throughout all of the 12 original organic race line timelines, and knowledge and wisdom in general when it comes to life. Their knowledge was originally compiled into 12 master copy disk technologies, again, the CDT plates, which were the original tablets of the Emerald Order. Not the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. It was the tablets of the Emerald Order. Again, CDT plate 11 is the one that Thoth hijacked for the Dark Atlantean Warlocks. And it was these original tablets to the CDT plates. There were specific groups of Magog Grail Shaman who were the keepers of these discs for their own specific races. And they were the encrypted principal teachings which were known even before the era and the rise of the Lemurian and Atlantean timelines. Again, administered by an assigned Magog Grail Shaman dragon bloodline lineages. The Magog Grail Shaman went through trials of initiation chosen from among all races and went through the rites of passage in order to gain potential full access to the grid works of consciousness each disc contained. This was to succeed way showers for others incarnating into the reality field to these things, who in turn had to face all the trials before these codes of awareness could ever fully activate and integrate to unfold within these individuals who were to hold record of their specific discs. In turn to each of the individual CDT plate discs, there was specific blood code and soul code race line genetics that were the only thing that could activate them. Each race had their own specific trajectory to this. And the ancient wisdom councils were the original overseers who were in the position as guardians and teachers of specific planetary stargates among those to their specific blood code, race line lineages, and tribes. And we're in the position to teach the consciousness mechanics of reality, manifestation, the unification of all expressions to sound, consciousness, energy, frequency, and vibration, streamlining into physicality in alignment with the higher force itself. As I'm teaching individuals with our mystery school how to tap the true core essence and codex that is there from within. These discs included extremely advanced technological information about all of the planetary Templars, stargates, ley lines, metaphysics, texts, schematics, and potentiality to gain access to the true universal tree of life itself. See, though, with all of this, one must understand that they are protected and concealed and can only be administered to activate through the blood code and soul code genetics. To this knowledge specifically, this goes deeper into the planetary Templar and what the Grail of Consciousness actually is. If you want to know more about that, go check out Magi Grail Shaman, Mystery of the Grail of Consciousness, as a part of the Magi Grail Shaman archives here on Black Earth Productions. And see, that position specifically can't be for everybody, but it does not mean that you cannot know it. And more importantly, you must know thyself. That's more important than anything else, because you're not going to even come to the place of knowing how to wield the mechanics of the planetary Templar until that happens, which they must for what is meant to be as it was. But to be a keeper of these things, it has to be very specific with individuals in context to their codex. And you will be unbelievably fucking tested if that's the case. Magi Grail Shaman, who came into this position, were also positioned to assign highly trained members of their mystery schools to eventually become stewards of this knowledge as well. Note here that there is a difference, again, between a keeper and a steward. And see, nowadays, this has nothing to do with some kind of weekend seminar, and now you're certified to be a shaman or a magician or a witch after a few classes, which in most cases are watered down, let alone distorted in context to the teaching that's been presented. And to how the real works here in context to this, there are those, again, who are put through very real, rigorous initiations to be able to hold and carry and wield the sacred knowledge and wisdom throughout multiple timelines, which is to do with other worlds and other universes, to where we stand here in Midgard, which again is our physical world and physical universe. We are protectors of the related information access within our multidimensional DNA codex. And during our current and future timeline cycles for future generations, this is where I will continue to take things with our mystery school. Not self-proclaimed, but fucking proven. Even as it has been confirmed by others that know the difference to these things, I am being held accountable to a standard. I am being held accountable to a code. And so to this, it's to you as the listener to know a bit more of my personal background. And see, I'm not just saying this shit for no reason. All of it has hit me on levels that I can't even fully express to what has actually been revealed, let alone integrated to the trajectory of my personal path work. And I've been through fucking hell to awaken the ancestors myself, and has put me into the position, whether I wanted it to or not. This is what the fuck it is. All of this goes back to Kemet and the ancient wars among the brotherhoods between the Sumerian, Draconian Empire, and Egypt. Literally losing my fucking mind and snapping back and realizing, holy fucking shit, this is actually fucking real. Next, I'm going to get into more in context to the galactic wars over the reseeding of all of this within our current time cycle race line lineages. For we are the 6 root races here in Midgard, meant to cross the threshold that we have now into the new Aeon, and to my specific race line and tribe codex, and to what each race line lineage holds, which are very specific things when it comes to the knowledge of the ancient wisdom councils. Not just the dragon shamanic lineages who are the keepers, but potentially to everyone as stewards for the future generations. I can only work from the codex that is there within my blood codes and soul codes to convey certain things. And it's the same thing with anyone else that is going to do the real great work. Now, taking it back in history, our true occult history to the time of the first Lemurian Holocaust, there was also a massive orchestration to bury and conceal the contents of historical timelines that are included in many of the specific CDT plates and their translations, and were seized throughout the chain line of the Hawaiian Islands, the west coast of the Americas, New Zealand, Australia, the east coast of Asia, Japan, all in context to Lemuria here, which also includes all of the island regions in between, going into all of the Pacific Oceanic regions. And with this, go back to how I said these things are revealed to a potential Magi Grail shaman in context. Again, they are buried within the fucking codex of the individual. And in context of things being unearthed, it is the same with the Atlantean chain lines of all the regions of the Atlantic. That is why it is called the Atlantic Ocean, in context to Atlantis, and to the boundary conditions of the spindle of the energy force itself on the axis mundi when it comes into our multidimensional DNA codex. And to this, you're going to want to get a hold of Lemurian and Atlantean crystals specifically. We have some here on our end that we work with as an extension of consciousness to actualize the mind. Crystals are fragments of the nervous system of the earth itself that streamline sound, consciousness, energy, frequency, and vibration into our reality field from within the earth to the authentic memories of everything, which are also going to be held within the DNA codex of individuals to be accessed to your own roots activated within the individual. They are meant to be used by Magi Grail shaman in order to teach and to protect specific sacred knowledge, which can also be accessed when working with these kinds of crystals, and should, if real, reveal things in context of the 12 original race line genetics here on Earth and the real occult knowledge when it comes to everything. Again, though, they are only revealed to those who know how to extract these things from within themselves, and who have also learned how to work with crystals correctly, because there's the right way and a lot of wrong ways that people are working with these things. And it's not as simple as owning a crystal. It's about knowing how to work with them. So to unlock and remember certain things that will be contained within the Lemurian and Atlantean timelines specifically. And further back, if it can be integrated. See, though, once an individual realizes that they are the actual crystal themselves here in context, that is how it will really come forth from within. And when wielded correctly, again, you must know thyself and what your personal mechanics are in order to do this. Which is why I have created our mystery school for those to whom it's meant. If you want to know these things about yourself, and you want to know how to do all of this correctly, then I'm going to encourage you to enroll in our mystery school and do the full pack initiation, having direct mentorship to lay the proper foundation in context to this pathwork initiation, which is also going to lead into more advanced initiations for those that had done this with our mystery school. And with everything that continues to unfold, again, this is what I'm going to encourage people to do. These things need to be known. They need to be known by you, the listener, to have the proper foundation into everything else that you would potentially come into. Again, take heed to what I'm saying. Give yourself the opportunity unto yourself, as is this pathwork, and it's how I live every single day of my existence now. We're going to go into another break. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts, and Occult Science. We will be right back. Chase the light through the shades. A rising moon ignites his ways. Failing to find a reasonable sign to crawl back, walking through space and time. Where would you go when the dew of thought fails? Chase the light through shades. A rising moon, eyes will glow. Hearts will take. I close my eyes and feel the gaze of life. Where would you go when the dew of thought fails? Lose yourself, hunted down. Choose to yield to higher grounds. Shoving off, sweeping away. The moon lighting another way. Welcome back, everyone, from the break. Going back into what I wanted to get into now. It's here to note that the galactic wars which have occurred throughout multiple dimensional timelines simultaneously are still happening now, simultaneously. Now see, this is the paradox in context to the secrets of time and space. And until we reach back into the original timeline that humanity is meant to be on, and catch up the soul cycles within the 6 root races going into 2025 and 2028, and even further into 2065 and 2085, then nothing is going to change. As consciousness levels in our reality field are lower than they have ever fucking been. I can't believe half the fucking shit that I see thrown out there into the ethers, proving the fact that Choronzon 333 is ruling your asses. Who is the thrice great in context to Thoth? Inverted logos. Void. And if you don't know what the fuck that is, you need to look it up. Go listen to Thomas Sheridan. He knows what the fuck he's saying in context. Knowing what the fuck I know, you people have no idea how deep this shit actually fucking goes. Unto the conviction of what I'm getting at here. You want to come at me and try to fuck with me? I've been in this shit longer than you can actually fucking imagine. And it really doesn't matter. What matters is what we do now to come into alignment. And stop with this bullshit and projection and denial. Fucking stop it. You are acting like fucking children to play these stupid games on a program you can't even see is running your ass. You better pay attention to what I'm saying. And for those of you that know me among the councils, you know that I'm not fucking around. Moving on now. Records among the ancient wisdom councils reveal, as it's been a long time since I've mentioned Tara. It is to note that Maldek, here in context to Tara, was the planetary bridge on the solar spiral of creation, point of navigation before Maldek was destroyed, and is when consciousness was fragmented on the solar spiral of creation over 560 million years ago now. And despite this absolutely devastating catastrophe, humanity survived. We have always survived. We have always existed. Do you remember the time you actualized yourself into existence? Go into that and realize that when the ancient wisdom councils are able to reassemble here on Earth, the knowledge of what once was will come again. And each of the 12 original race lines, at the core essence, still hold memory to everything. The Magi Grail Shaman are genetically key-coded to their demographic, planetary stargates, and locations on the first two spirals of creation within the galactic gridworks of Midgard. And to that, also with specific planetary dimensional spheres and ley line networks, as we have here on Earth. It was the same as when we did originally in context to Maldek, which again, for those that may be hearing this for the first time now, is the asteroid belt. Not only is it the asteroid belt, but it is our moon included with the other moons of every planetary sphere, and it is also the rings of Saturn, to which again, as I have mentioned, there are reports coming through stating that the rings of Saturn are starting to dissipate. And to that confirmation again with me, knowing what I know, it proves that fragments of consciousness that were blown apart on account of the cataclysm of Maldek are being integrated with those that are doing the real fucking work here on Earth. You have to remember, again, that the heavens above are within. And we have genetic time codes in our DNA codex related to these specific planetary stargates of consciousness and multidimensional systems that are part of our blood code to soul code human tribal identity codex when it comes to all of this, as was the original intention of incarnation, to know thyself. This isn't art and science. This isn't some slogan you can throw out there and now you know thyself because you say, know thyself. How do you really come to know thyself in context to the alchemical rites of initiation, working to activate your eternal spirit of blood code to soul code human tribal identity codex? This is what the fuck we were ripped away from. And we have to remember how to use personal planetary keys in context to planetary high magic and as part of the foundation level teaching to this pathwork initiation into our mystery school, and will lay the proper foundation to evolve in context to the occult. See, the occult right now needs a major reformation because all of this old fucking teaching, like I've said, it's not going to work for what's coming. But alas, if that is part of your path, then hopefully some of the things I've shared on Black Earth Productions are going to keep you from going completely fucking mad when this shit hits you for real. I'm not fucking playing over here. When we activate our inner core by running the 12D energy and string line, the 144 frequency of consciousness harmonic in context to the spindle of the energy force. Remember that 144 reduced is 9, just on a side note. This is how we are able to access the spindle throughout our bodies on a multidimensional level. So to eventually wield magic in full alignment and mastery of ourselves on every level of our physical reality field and also on a multidimensional level. This goes back deeper into knowing how to master drawing the circle of the magician and activate your blood code and soul code genetics and heal the ancestors and lineages and really take seriously to participate within the consciousness evolution cycle and work to assemble the DNA codex in context to the original Alpharian human root races. The Keylontic sciences also speak about things in context to the covenant of Palador, which allows the lost souls of Maldek Tutara access into this reality field to reclaim our true identity and cosmic birthright and eternal inheritance. And when these stargates are activated and open, the ultimate outcome of the real ascension cycles and context to initiation into all of these things, again, as I've stated, true ascension happens here on Earth. That is why we incarnated. We didn't incarnate to be slaves or escape reality, but in order to heal, in order to remember, in order to become sovereign, and thus be co-creators in alignment with the higher force and potentially one another. And see, on this level of things, taking back jurisdiction in this reality field for ourselves, for our people, and for future generations, for something that has never happened before since our ancestors faced what they did. And it's what we are still facing now. Now, previous to the more current Atlantean and Lemurian cataclysm of Pangea, This is what happened to the effect of what Thoth and the Thothian sect did when the wars broke out against the Magi Grail Shaman bloodlines. And though it started with the Anyani, soon after is when the wars among the Brotherhoods broke out in Kemet, when the Dark Ones tore a wormhole open in Sakura, Egypt, pulling gridworks of consciousness into the Weezadak system on an interdimensional level, which is something I'm going to get into more later, which amplified by the dark diodic crystal pillar, which was the cause point in context to Pangea for all of the landmass of Earth to split apart into the continents that we have today. When the pole shift happened, it is when the Great Flood happened, and then came the Ice Age, which lasted thousands of years, up to about 13,000 to 14,000 BC. And with those that survived were scattered across the earth and were cut off from one another. And over the course of thousands of years, the true history of what happened was lost in the wake of ruins. Some of those among those that survived did work to keep record of what they could. And there were still those that throughout our history have been entrusted, still holding extensive levels of consciousness and knowledge about the blood code and soul code origins with those that were stewards. Most of the keepers among the Magi Grail Shaman were wiped out, and others sided with the Dark Ones for jurisdiction and trade for their codex. Some things to note about them can be taken into the philosophy of the cult of Baal Lilith, which in turn is the philosophy of the Thothian sect and the Brotherhood of the Snake. Understand here that Baal is the great storm god of the Sumerian Draconian Empire, who was worshipped throughout the timelines of ancient Mesopotamia and during the rise of the Dark Ones before the Atlantean Holocaust took place. Baal is worshipped by the Dark Solar cult, and the word Baal is a horrific inverted title to mean Lord or Master that has also been attached to several entities. Worship of Baal under several different names over time has been strongly associated with the practice of blood sacrifice, human sacrifice, and child sacrifice. The offering of one's firstborn is considered the highest form of worship and the most potent form of dark ritual at the disposal of the dark magicians. There are logistical and opportunistic motivations involved, as well as cannibalism. And see, this is where the legends of the vampire come from. And they are real. You need to understand this shit. Listen to me. Entities follow common archetypes of consciousness that are subsequently renamed from one culture to the next. And though they may gain or lose various attributes, this is most evident when comparing the Greek and Roman pantheons here in context, which can be applied to every form of religion, especially Christianity and Satanism, which all goes back to the Sumerian Draconian Empire in context to the cult of Mithras. And all three Abrahamic religions are founded on Baal. The dark priesthood formulated the distinctive divisions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam to continue their human sacrifice rituals and wars and perpetuated religious persecution and endless slaughter. All was molded after the ancient Atenist sun worship to Mithras and unto the black sun of Sethu, which was the fusion of the ultimate evil and the false cold light. And the god of the cult of Baal is a sadist of the highest order. To understand the fact that everything here in context to the mysteries has its inversion, they were the fathers of the inversions and all of the reversals and all of the distortions. They are everything to do with both the dark and false cold light variants of Freemasonry, the Ari tree construct systems of magic in context to Kabbalah in reflection to the Qliphoth, inverting the office of Lucifer unto many, many other suborders and organizations overshadowed by their umbrella of influence. You don't get to get away from reality, and this does affect you in every way. To the Dark One's cause for you, which is not our cause in alignment with truth. They are devoted to an ideology of sadistic self-interest above morality. and they do what thou wilt. That is their motto, no matter the consequence, to the inversion of Thelema, and consequently seek out individuals with an unwitting tendency towards narcissism and psychopathy to join their ranks so that they can be molded as puppets for various agendas. And make no mistake about it, that the dark Luciferians know metaphysical secrets to knowledge, having access to dark sorcery and magic and a pantheon of demonic entities to work with through them in alliance with the dark gods themselves. And many within their ranks are controlled by non-physical entities and new stellar alien factions on an interdimensional level. It's not happening out there, it is happening here, as within, as without. That is how the law of correspondence works. The as above, so below is the exact same thing as the as within, as without. And it's this control that is exerted through both direct communication channels and voluntary and involuntary possession. And for those that have dived into the occult for however many years you have, you need to hear me, because keeping you from the truth is nothing that I am in the business of as long as it depends on me. And most still have no idea that there is more, even beyond everything that I've shared, that is going to be presenting itself here on our platform. And I'm working very, very hard on all of these things, as well as mentoring with our mystery school 24/7. And the office of Tahuti, the position of the Magog Grail shaman, needs to be reinstated here in context to the Sirius Kemetan Egyptian pre-dynastic Magog Grail shaman lines, in context to my soul code genetics lineage. The position of high priest here in context is why I know what I know. The real work comes down to a personal gnosis, a personal path work. And you, all of this is more to do with our codes of consciousness and what I am releasing now within myself to heal doing this segment. And now we can, knowing the difference, giving Thoth his proper position as an archetype to the ancient wisdom councils, which is the office of your mind. It is the office of your own thought and connection and conviction to the core intelligence, and is what needs to drive the will force of true intelligence in our lives. If anybody out there is interested in our mystery school, check out our services page on the website at blackearthproductionswithaz.com. To get a hold of me directly for any of our services in context to being initiated into our mystery school, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. Listen to the Great Mother, for only in the land of wolves can you face your fears and truly be human. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. Stay posted for the next segment. I look forward to hearing from more of you very, very soon.